I'd like to firstly welcome Australia's Deputy High Commissioner, Kate Duff, and also from Enterprise Singapore, Ki-Ai Nan, who's the Executive Director, Consumer and Lifestyle. Enterprise Singapore has been very helpful putting this all together with us, reaching out to a number of you other partners to get everybody along. Now, it is amazing to see so many people here in what is one of Singapore's busiest weeks. Many of you I know I've seen during the course of this week at Switch, Tech Innovation, and things are still going on, so many side events. Also, from Australia's point of view, there's Good Science is great business going on. That's actually a whole month of activities, and so it's great to have this activity as part of that. So a warm welcome to you all. Now, this morning is an important day actually for Meat and Livestock Australia, which we keep referring to as MLA. So MLA is Meat and Livestock Australia. This is kind of a first step. The folks have been a member here at Level 3, and I'll give you a quick word on Level 3 in a moment. But they've been here a very active member of the ecosystem here. And today, in a sense, and always, it's a journey. And it's kind of the first step. Sorry, I have to use the glasses to read, but then I can't see if I do. So I'm doing the old man stuff and putting them on my head. So it's an important first step in establishing an innovation platform here in Singapore. Many of you most probably have not heard about Meat and Livestock Australia before, which is great because that's why you're here to learn more about it today. And they're here to learn from you. And I think that, again, is what everything is about. Level 3 is about collaboration, and I think everything that we've seen with Switch and Tech Innovation this week, it's about collaborations, it's about opportunities, it's about possibilities. Think about that, COP. Collaboration, opportunities, and possibilities. That's what we're all about, and we're gathering here to do that. So this platform that MLA is establishing, today is the first step, making you aware of what they do, also talking to you about the opportunities as they see it, but at the same time, although they've been operating in Australia for, I don't know, more than 100 years, I'm going to say, they want to hear from you about what you see as the opportunities and the possibilities and how they can collaborate with you, your partners here in Singapore and beyond. Because as we all know, Singapore is a fantastic market, but it's not the huge market. But what it is, it's the best springboard for anyone to come to leap across the rest of ASEAN and to North Asia. So this morning we're going to hear some information that will, it's a rich menu of information to sort of play on the pun of food. There are a number of speakers giving short, sharp insights to what's going on. We're going to hear from Enterprise Singapore, from Food Innovation and Resource Centre, and then from MLA talking about the meat industry, some amazing stats there, and some of the opportunities. And that's going to run, oh, they're up there, good. So you've seen what's happening. That's going to take us about an hour, and then we're going to go into Carousel Rotations. You've each been allocated or selected 2 colours when you came in. And the first colour you choose is where you're going to start. And as you can see, this board over on my left will be brought down to the centre. We'll have a board at the back and a board on my right, each colour-coded. And you're going to break out and move to one of those boards, and you're going to spend about 20 minutes there. But I'll go into the details of that a little bit later. This is an opportunity to go a little bit deeper into the information, but most importantly, get your feedback, your thoughts, and those of you who are interested, opportunities for partnerships, further conversations. But today is a first day. There's another program that will follow up from this in late November, early December, which will be building on today's discussions and going deeper and looking at how we can take the discussion forward and cement some of those relationships. So I think and then, of course, we go into lunch. And there's more, as we say. But as always, there's no free lunch, so we do want you to sort of work on those carousels. But for those people who are here all the way through the morning, we have a lucky draw. And we're going to a combination of business cards and also completing the survey forms. And the prizes, there are 3, not 1, but 3 meat trays or 3 vouchers for wonderful Australian meat that you could get nowhere. It's been flowing in straight, direct from farm to you. It's not available today. You'll get a voucher for it. And they are valued at, Michael, I'm reliably informed, at $150 each. My goodness. So it just keeps on keeping on. Yes, a round of applause for the meat. Let's hear it for the meat. And some of the meat is proudly represented in the fridge behind us. Now, how many of you come to workshops and you have a special fridge? And that fridge actually even talks, but that's another story, and I'm sure Sam will tell us about the talking fridge a little bit later. Okay, I've taken more than my allocated time, but I'd now like to introduce, to give us some welcoming remarks, Kate Duff, Australia's Deputy High Commissioner to Singapore. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you very much, Adam. And I have to say, it's not like any workshop I've ever been to. The vibe in the room is really, quite special. And congratulations, everyone, for being here. Look, we're very pleased to be here this morning with MLA, shall I say? Let's just call it MLA, and Parakan Co for this workshop. And for this workshop, indeed, to be part of our Science Month. Our Good Science Equals Great Business 2018 is Australia's innovation festival in Singapore and ASEAN, and it's running over September and includes over 40 events. And just need to say, for those festival frequent flyers in the audience, you may have heard a couple of these things before, but bear with me. We'll get to the meat bit shortly. So, just to let you know that, we've run this festival so far over 3 weeks. We've got many exciting events to go. We wrap up next week with a gala dinner at which our Minister for Science, Industry and Technology, Karen Andrews MP, will be joining us, and we're very excited that she's been able to come to Singapore for that. But I think also we just wanted to acknowledge our festival partners in this context too. So we have CSIRO, who launched their ASEAN Hub office in Singapore this week, which is a fantastic contribution, I think, to the environment here, and I think will lead to a lot of wonderful additional collaboration. Auscham Singapore and Austrade are our festival partners. Wonderful sponsors, and we couldn't do what we do here in Singapore with a festival like this without our great sponsors. James Cook University, the Australian National University, our platinum sponsors. Icon SOC, joined by Curtin Singapore and Lendlease as our gold sponsors. Silver sponsors, Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, the Australian Nuclear Science Technology Organisation, big event next Friday with ANSTO if you're interested in nuclear things, and the University of Queensland and Murdoch Singapore. And these are all institutions which are, engaging in various ways here in Singapore to deepen our relationship. A quick word, why did we do this festival? Well, first we wanted to showcase what we can offer. And I think this is an excellent example of, MLA coming to Singapore and talking about the sorts of things it can offer in this market. But Singapore, of course, has many wonderful institutions that we wish to engage with further. We already do with EDB, with NTU, NUS, obviously Enterprise Singapore here this morning, and a very, very thriving local and multinational business environment for us all to work with. So many, many opportunities. So in terms of what we can offer and in terms of what we think, the Singaporean environment offers, we just see such tremendous potential, as I think Adam mentioned earlier, for us to do more in the science and innovation space. And this spans so many fields. I mean, agri-tech, we talked last night about digital health, the span of things that we can do, I think, in the science and innovation space is just tremendous. So that is indeed why this workshop is right on point in introducing MLA to the innovation community here in Singapore and opening up that conversation about opportunities for sustainable food futures in the red meat industry. MLA is recognised as a leader in delivering research and developing opportunities for what we call paddock to plate, and as we say, also marketing and promotional campaigns that are really aimed at consumers worldwide. So congratulations for that. Australia is a supplier of high quality, trusted and nutritious beef, lamb and goat to over 100 countries around the world. We may only produce 3.5%, I think it is that correct? Yep, 3.5% of world beef production and 4.8% of world sheep meat production. But we are the third largest beef exporter and the largest sheep meat exporter. So that's quite an incredible thing. This, export profile means that Australian industry is really focused on global consumers and in delivering products that meet those global consumer needs. So while today's business, of course, remains strong, industry recognises, as a lot of industries do these days, that you need to look at what you need to do, prepare for the future, really equip yourselves and take advantage of the new opportunities, and in order to meet changing consumer demands. So MLA is seeking to do this by driving new innovations in product mix and path to market. So again, we're back to the seminar here today. This is what this is all about. This is launching this program in Singapore and developing new partnerships to foster growth in new and higher value markets. So today you'll hear a range of things about MLA's key trends that they have identified. They're looking to hear from the attendees today. I get the impression there's not going to be a lot of an issue getting this audience going in terms of questions and participation, so good luck. And I look forward to sticking around for some of the presentations this morning. I think, Adam, I would just say your COP, I think, one of the things that we think about with the P as well, and it's really applying to Singapore more and more, is partnership. And again, our festival is all about bringing everyone together and looking at true partnership models, deeper collaboration and engagement in a way that will give us, a very, very sustainable future together as we work in Singapore, but also in the market. So all the best for this morning. Thank you.
Now, if you'd please welcome Bernice Tay, Deputy Director, Food Manufacturing Enterprise Singapore, to take us through the partnerships landscape here in Singapore. Bernice.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Bernice, and I represent the Food Manufacturing Division of Enterprise Singapore. So just a very quick introduction to Enterprise Singapore. We were actually formed early this year in April from a merger between Spring Singapore and International Enterprise Singapore. And together with our extensive network of local and overseas partners, we champion enterprise development with a key focus on productivity, innovation, and internationalization. So let me first start by painting an overview of the food landscape in Singapore. Everyone is probably aware that Singapore is a food paradise. Our chili crab and chicken rice are renowned worldwide, and at the same time, Singaporeans are very exposed to a wide range of cuisines and food formats. Without a doubt, this country is passionate about its food. But apart from our strong F&B culture, we also have a diverse base of about 948 food manufacturers spanning 9 key subsectors, including meat, dairy, snacks, and confectionery. And in fact, more than 60% of our food manufacturers export their output to global markets, including Australia. So the sector has been growing at an increasing and steady rate. But for our companies to be competitive globally, they have no choice but to innovate to differentiate their products. And on their innovation journey, our companies are supported by a robust science and technology ecosystem that draws expertise and resources from our institutes of higher learning, MNCs, and research institutions such as A*STAR. This ecosystem covers upstream players conducting research to downstream players that help our SMEs to commercialize their products. With this ecosystem in place and our proximity to Asia, Singapore is very well positioned to develop and test bid new and innovative food products for the region. And this is timely considering the McKinsey study that has shown that Asia's share of the global growth in middle-class consumption will account for nearly 60% in the next decade, with health, wellness, and sustainability as the top trends for the Asian consumer. My next slide will actually provide more granularity on the food manufacturing sector. Apart from what I mentioned earlier, we also have a very exciting pipeline of food tech startups that are focused on alternative proteins, functional foods, and new processing technology or extraction methods. Yesterday, if you had gone to Tech Innovation, you would have seen some of our local startups exhibiting, including Bounty Food, which has developed a natural ingredient called Carbonated, which slows down digestion of carbs in the food and could be a means to address diabetes and obesity. Or even Sinful Tech, which has managed to convert tofu whey, a byproduct generated from tofu production, into a 7% alcoholic beverage, which they named Sachi. And I'm happy to report firsthand that it tastes delicious, like a good Moscato. Going to the next slide. Given these attributes, let me talk a little bit about our aspirations. And we aspire to become a leader in food innovation and a pioneer in new solutions from farm to fork. We want to become a core manufacturing location for Asia in the future of food. And just to be a little bit more ambitious, we aspire towards self-sustainability and export-driven growth, We are already seeing the rise of urban farming in Singapore, with industry players experimenting with new farming methods and technologies that involve automated systems, data analytics, plant and animal science. And it is with these aspirations that we launched a multi-agency initiative called Food Innovate this April. Essentially, Food Innovate seeks to achieve our vision of becoming a food and nutrition hub in Asia through 4 main strategies, which can be summarized as knowledge, co-innovation, infrastructure, and disruption. I'll go into more detail in the following slides. So firstly, when it comes to innovation, some of the key gaps we uncovered were that some of our companies remained unaware of what or how to innovate, usually the smaller SMEs, and they did not know or have access to resources or partners on their innovation journey. After product formulation, they also lacked the facilities to do small batch production for sale. So to address this, Food Innovate seeks to promote knowledge transfer of food science, technologies, and market research among MNCs, research institutes, and SMEs. And we have worked with partners such as Mintel and DSM to run thematic seminars on key trends in elderly nutrition and functional foods. We also create platforms for co-innovation, such as this, to bring together demand drivers and solution providers to conceptualize and commercialize their ideas. For example, we worked with our trade association, the Singapore Food Manufacturing Association, to run 2 rounds of a Food Innovation Product Award. And during this process, local manufacturers actually worked with students from our institutes of higher learning to develop new products. We are happy to say that we will be taking this Product Innovation Award globally, starting first with a partnership with the Victorian government, where our companies will actually partner students from Monash University to co-create new products. Going on to strategy 3, our third strategy is to provide access to shared facilities, so companies can trial their new ideas and quickly scale up. This April, we launched a new high-pressure processing facility with the Food Innovation and Resource Center and a logistics company, Wilner. Companies can tap on this technology on a pay-per-use basis without having to fork out heavy investments in equipment. In addition, Food Innovate also collaborates with corporate partners with excess production capacity to open their facilities to smaller companies. Finally, our fourth strategy is to encourage and build a pipeline of disruptive food technologies and solutions. We do so by creating and supporting food and agri-tech startups, as well as supporting companies to set up corporate VCs and accelerator arms. If you go to the next slide, today, by sharing our strategies and our plans, I hope I have convinced you in some measure that we have a very vibrant food ecosystem with readily available resources. And we hope that sharing at this platform will also be a means to spark collaborations between Australia and Singapore companies. These could be in areas such as food and nutrition, packaging, food waste, or even traceability. Let me conclude by saying that with the rise of consumerism in Asia and the growing demand for healthy, nutritious, and personalized foods, we see great potential in Singapore becoming a food and nutrition hub. And we welcome Australia and Australian companies to be key partners with us in this journey. Thank you.
Now, we've just got time for 1 or 2 questions, if anyone would like some questions around Bernice's presentation. Otherwise, you'll have an opportunity in the networking to speak with Bernice and the team later. Okay, let's keep it moving. Thank you again very much, Bernice. There's an enormous amount there. I mean, they were terrific slides. I learned a lot. And certainly here, there's a nice call out. Encourages Singapore and Australian companies. So thank you for that. I think that's terrific. And particularly, I can see elderly nutrition, which is certainly one of the topics for today. So I'm glad to see that we're all so aligned. Now, our next speaker is taking us into the next aspects of looking at some of the other sort of trends in technology. So now I'd like to introduce Martin Wong, who's the Manager, Consumer-Centric Innovation at Food Innovation and Resource Centre, Singapore. Martin, over to you.
Well practiced, Adam. Okay. I'm just going to go through Food Innovation Resource Centre. Some of you might have heard of our centre before, but if you haven't, then this is a good opportunity to get to know us better. Right? Okay. Food Innovation Resource Centre was launched by Enterprise Singapore in 2007, and it's actually a joint initiative between Singapore Polytechnic and Enterprise Singapore. Singapore Polytechnic is somewhat like a TAFE college compared to what you have in Australia. What we have there are students learning diplomas, technical diplomas, science diplomas, as well as business diplomas. I am a student from Singapore Polytechnic, so it's my way of sort of giving back to the school, going back to join them again. Okay, so we've been around for about 11 years, just celebrated our anniversary last year, 10 years. And the main thing why we wanted to set up Food Innovation and Resource Center was to enhance the capabilities of the food industry through 3 areas: technology development, solutioning, as well as training them. Okay. So, our technical expertise. We deal with almost everything. You will never know what comes through the door for projects for us. So we've had cricket ice cream come through the door. We've got a few other weird and funny, wonderful projects coming through, but most of them are coming from SMEs when we first started, and that's why when we started, we wanted to help these companies. In fact, when Food Innovation and Resource Center first started, we had only 4 of us. Right? So now we've grown to a strength of about 40. We talk about food ingredients and functional food, food process development and optimization, packaging, shelf life extension, process workflow, equipment design, sensory and consumer science, which is an area that we are trying to grow very much now because we know about consumer insights and how important it is to developing food products which actually meets the needs of the consumers. So we almost do everything if you look at this slide. The only thing we don't do is testing services because there's lots of testing services out there already and we don't really want to compete with them. So our tagline is bringing food concepts to reality, okay? So let me just show you some examples of some things we've brought to reality, okay? So some of our commercialized products, so like you see, looking at this slide, you see the range of products that come through is really unexpected. We don't know what's going to come through the door each time. Some of our success stories, I would say, would be this carbonated honey beverage. Okay, sounds like a simple product. Let's just take honey, mix it with water, Australian honey, if I may add, mixed with water and carbonate it. Simple, right? Our technologists, when they were trying to develop this product, were knocking their heads against the wall because when you carbonate something like honey, the flavor goes off. So you don't get the original flavor of Australian honey anymore. So we had to work around a bit with playing with the technology, using different temperatures, using different levels of carbonation to get it just right. Another interesting project I would like to point out probably would be this Kaya project. Kaya is a coconut jam that's quite popular in Singapore. With the push from our health promotion board to have lower sugar products out in the markets, we managed to bring down the sugar level of this coconut jam to quite a nice level, so it still has a good taste. There's still some sugar in it. It's not totally sugar-free, but at least it's much better than its original product. Okay. We also have, locals here would go crazy just looking at this picture because people are queuing up and they always run out by about 2 o'clock. Now, we did not develop the product. Okay, what we did was to help them do some shelf life studies. They wanted to change their product from a plastic container into a plastic bag which has barrier properties that helps them to export. And I'm happy to say that we've actually helped them to extend their shelf life from about 2 months to about 9 months. We're trying to push for a year. So with 9 months, export is possible now. All right. And also, of course, there's another aspect of the work that we do, which is designing equipment for the food industry. It's not always easy. It's probably easier to design equipment for, say, if you're making a TV, making a handphone, a mobile phone, and things like that, but not so much for food, because every food product, the way it works, the way it's built is quite different. So we had quite a bit of fun working with some companies doing some of these sugar lines and things like that. So this sugar line is quite an interesting story behind it. This company is the only sugar manufacturing company in Singapore, and they are having a lot of troubles because their workers are aging a lot. Okay, so with aging workers and new educated youngsters don't want to be working in the sugar line, so they have to go down the path of automation. So that's what we had to look at. Okay, so we partner with quite a lot of people in the industry. Almost many companies have come through our doors. Okay, we also have a lot of interactions with our collaborators, like ESG, of course, SFMA, AVA, all the regulatory bodies as well. And in our 10 years, we have done about 1,300 consultancy projects, establishments that we have touched 650. Commercialization rate, something that's out of our control. As much as we try to develop something that would be ready for the market, really depends on the company and their decisions. We've managed to hit about 43%, which is not a bad figure. Okay, So our facilities include a full kitchen. Okay, the only problem with that kitchen is because the building doesn't allow fire, so we have to use induction cookers. For companies that require fire cooking, we have to go down to their factory to actually do it. Okay, we have a pack studio with packaging equipment as well as testing equipment for packaging, processing lines, as well as a bakery. And of course, our sensors, which is an area where we do our sensory evaluation. So quite a full suite of facilities available. We have been doing all these networking, value-adding services to our companies, as well as doing testing services for them, training them. What we are looking at trying to develop now is looking at shared flexible facilities. We want to convert our pilot plant into something. Currently, our pilot plant, we can only produce products for testing services, for market research and things like that. We can't really sell these products, but we are looking at converting that space into companies who want to have small runs. Now, a lot of problems we have with companies is we've developed the product for them. If they were to go to a contract manufacturer, they have to do 600,000 pieces, let's say. Okay, so we're hoping with this small little facility, they can do maybe about 1,000 to 5,000 pieces, 10,000 maybe, and then they can just try it out in the market first. Okay, so to the gist of it now, meat projects. Okay, 8 to 15% of our projects have to do with meat in nature. So we don't actually have a lot of examples to show for red meat. We have some, but I'll just show you some of the meat projects that have come through our doors. Okay, so let it go. Everyone wants to let these things go. We know that they're important. Nitrite, fat, salt, they are the nasties, they call them, in the meat products. But they're also very important because the meat requires nitrite to stay fresh as a preservative. We need the salt for the taste, and we also need a lot of other things that are in there. So what we tried to do, okay, a lot of companies come to us to do this, okay, looking at different things like celery powder, which has a high nitrite content, using organic acids as a preservative, as an alternative to nitrites, replacing the fat and replacing the sodium. Of course, one of the main issues we have with companies coming to us is, I want it to taste exactly the same as before. Not always possible. The best we can do probably is about 90% of its original taste. But a lot of these ingredients are now available in the market, which we use to input into our food products, and then we test with our customers to make sure that they actually can accept it before they push it out. Okay, next, looking at preserving tradition. Okay, with most braised products, how long do we normally need to cook it for? 2 to 3 hours. What if I want to have it in 2 to 3 minutes? Possible with retort technology. Okay. Well, retort technology is not new. It's aged. It's really, really old. But it is still one of the most used technologies to preserve food without the use of chemical preservatives. So what we have here is a very traditional braised meat product, which a company came to us and said we wanted to convert this into a shelf-stable product. Sounds easy. Just throw in the retort, bring it out, and sell it. No, not so easy. Okay, because different layers of fat and meat in the pork belly respond differently to the heat treatment. If you overheat it, the fat actually melts. If you underheat it, the meat is still quite tough and stringy. So we actually have to optimize the temperatures and the times in order for us to do this. And also on the marinade, it actually intensifies certain spice notes when you heat it up too much. So there's a lot of playing around. So in the end, we finally got to this, doing about 40 over trials to get to the final product that was accepted by the client. Okay, next we have... Okay, company producing beef bacon came to us and said that we have about 200 kilograms of waste almost every day. Okay, what can we do with that? Okay, the very first thought we have, of course, is to convert it into shelf-stable bacon bits. Sounds easy again. Let's just dry it and roast it, but it gives you the texture that's sometimes not quite right. Okay, so we actually had to optimize that process again, and bacon bits are not very big in Singapore, right? Whereas in other countries where they use it as a topping for salads and things like that. So what we decided to do was also to bring down the particle size so that we can use it as a flavor filler for sausages, which means just adding a little bit of this amped up the umami flavor for the sausages, right? And the bacon tallow that was collected, we actually used it, tried to convert it into something that we can use for roasting potatoes as well. Okay, so this one is a little bit more blue sky. If you notice, all the research that we're doing are very practical innovations. We don't actually do blue sky research for our clients because that's not what they want. This is something a little bit different from what the industry is requiring. We started doing this ourselves. Look at this piece of meat. It looks wonderful. All right, nicely charred, medium rare in the center, just the way I like it. Okay, not everyone can cook it to this level. And if you look at the ones that are frozen, if you have frozen steaks and things like that, when you reheat them, you will never get it looking like this, right? So what we did was to pre-sear it, vacuum seal it, and we pressure processed it because we have access to the pressure processor, all right? So what happens to the meat after you pressure process it and keeping it in chilled storage for 6 weeks, which is quite long? Okay, you see the color has changed a little bit. Still quite okay, okay? The seared exterior has lightened, the interior has darkened a little. Texture was wonderful. It was still very favorable, and it retains the tender melt in the mouth texture, not something that you can get for meat that has been stored for 6 weeks. As well as the flavor, intense beefy umami flavor remains as well. And it's quite easy to serve because we vacuum packed it before we seared it, before we actually pressure processed it. So all you have to do is to put this back in boiling water for about 2 to 3 minutes, take it out, and that's it. You have a piece of steak. That's all. Thank you very much.
We have time for, if there's a quick 1 or 2 questions, or again, we can take them up in the networking session. Okay, we'll do that later. So, I mean, it's great to see from Enterprise Singapore, we've seen the opportunities across Singapore, the policies and the support that's there. From Martin, we've seen, the facilities and the extraordinary work that you've been doing over the last 10 years. So there's so much on the table, a great menu of items. So now we're going to dive deeper into getting into it. So I'd now like to welcome Michael Finucane, who's the General Manager, International Markets, MLA, who's going to take you through what MLA is about and give you some stats and figures that I think will open up your eyes about the red meat industry. Michael, over to you.
Thank you, Adam. And look, firstly, I just want to thank everyone for coming. We've had an overwhelming reception to this event, and for all of those who are here, I hope you're going to learn something new and meet some new people. I see some familiar faces in the room, but I see lots of new faces, which is great for MLA. I think the timing of our event this week just couldn't be better with the Australian Embassy's Good Science, Good Business on this month, but also the Switch technology events happening. And I've been at a few events this week, and some of the themes around health, diabetes, ageing population, nutrition are right on song with what we want to talk to you about today. Just further to that, I'd like to thank the Embassy and Kate for your support. Thank you for coming, and thank you to the whole Embassy team who are here and have supported us, and to Enterprise Singapore for partnering with us. It's really great to have a good local company to support us and take us on this journey. And for your presentation, some of those technologies we've been looking at, and some of our team would be really excited to talk to you about that. So before I get into my slides, I just wanted to introduce the team that's here from MLA. So as Adam mentioned, my name's Michael Finucane, General Manager, International Markets. I've been here in Singapore for about 18 months. My role was moved here 18 months ago to set up a hub here for gathering our insights, collecting our Asian insights to support our strategies and our program development, to continue with our good marketing and our marketing programs around the world, but also for this to start doing some innovation and engaging with new partners in the region. So it's great to be here, and I'm really enjoying being in this space, Adam. It's a great space and a great community to meet people. For our team, first of all, I'd like to introduce Sean Starling. So he's the only one without an MLA shirt, that's why I can't see him. So Sean heads up our research and development arm of the business. He's got a wealth of knowledge about all the researchers that we work with, and feel free to come up and have a chat to Sean and some of the work he's up to. Sam Bucklow, who you'll be hearing from in a minute, is our design thinker in-house. So Sam's really driving us on this innovation journey and helping us frame it so we can talk to new people. Ellen Rogers. So Ellen's been with us for about 6 months, based here in Singapore, managing our Southeast Asia portfolio. And so Ellen's going to be our local expert on the trends here in Asia. Up the back corner there, we've got Michael Patching in Vietnam, Livestock Services Manager. He's looking after Southeast Asia region for sort of live export and market access activities. Rose is in Malaysia. So Rose has been with us for a long time, I think nearly 20 years. So great to have you, Rose, and she's an expert of the region and Malaysia. Tim Ryan. Tim's new to us here in Singapore a couple of months, but Tim's our analyst, inside analyst and data analyst, and we've recently brought him up here to help us tap into some more research. And David Carew. So David's a technical expert on meat. He's our in-house chef. He's been in the region for a number of years now, and we're using him to help engage with our partners. And I have to mention the fridge for David, and Adam's already given it a great plug, but the fridge has got some of our existing products and technologies in there, and it's also a new way that we're using to communicate to the consumer with the talking fridge and the video screen and able to tell our story. And then lastly, Michael Lee. Michael's based out of Brisbane. Michael looks after our high food frontiers. So, you know, Michael's great in a lot of these new technologies, been doing a lot of work and really keen to engage and find out how we interact with Asia. So that's a bit of the formal stuff. I'll now just move on to just give you a bit more background about MLA. Look, we believe there's great opportunities globally for red meat. We've got a clean, safe, trusted, integral product that we've been supplying to the world for 100 years. We believe there's future opportunities with new consumers, new cuisines and new experiences in how they eat our product. And that's why we're here today, to talk about that and to meet new partners and partner with people on that journey. So, I think I've turned it off. So look, MLA, we're a producer-based body. We're owned by, we represent the beef, sheep and goat industry out of Australia. We're funded through a statutory levy that the producer pays on the sale of livestock. So that's where our core funding comes from. Our mission is to increase producer profitability, sustainability and global competitiveness. And we do that with doing research from paddock to plate, and also marketing and talking about our positive attributes globally and getting consumer engagement in our product. We've got a global reach. We have about 250 staff, about 45 of them overseas. We have 8 key offices in our international markets and our head office in Sydney with a couple of other offices that we launch out of. We've got a large investment portfolio. This year's budget's $270 million. We spent about $155 million of that on R&D and $115 of that on marketing. About $130 million of that comes from our producer base, from the levy that we collect. We then partner with government and we receive a matching funds of about $70 million for our research. That we then go to the research community and to commercial parties to partner again to get an additional approximately $70 million. So, you know, we draw a lot of funds for our activities. We've got a number of strategic priorities there, but I was just going to touch on that. Our R&D is really focused on that paddock to plate story, as I mentioned, improving the efficiency, finding new ways of doing business, improving how we do things. We've got a lot of new technologies at the abattoir on making more efficient, measuring better, capturing more data, making sure that we get a nutritious and easy to eat product to the market. On the marketing side, we're really focusing about opening up market access. We need to have as many markets as possible for our producers in Australia to sell their product. We're a small population in Australia, 20 million, but we want to tap into a global population of a growing wealth and growing incomes. And we're export focused. So we're out there talking about our positive attributes, talking about where the product comes from and how to eat it and how to use it. So just a bit more on the red meat story. As I mentioned before, we export to about 100 countries around the world. Our export value is about $13 billion. And our domestic sales are worth about $11 billion. Internationally, Asia is our largest market, predominantly on the back of Japan and Korea, some of our biggest beef markets, but it's worth about $6 billion. China's growing in that space, but it's still quite small when you look at our North Asia portfolio. It's really Japan and Korea. The US is our next biggest market. It's traditionally been a manufacturing meat market for hamburgers, but we're seeing a really growing trend there in grass-fed beef meeting new consumers, the millennials. And then Southern Asia, again, it's a really important market. It's large and diverse and growing, and that's part of the conversation that we're here today with. So we're looking to grow that sector. But what's the red meat business all about? A lot of people think it's just a steak on a plate, but there's a lot more to it. So our industry currently is about pulling an animal to pieces and getting the most value for each one of those pieces, finding the customer that will pay the most. The only way you do that is understanding what the customer eats and how they eat your product. So it's about matching the product with the customer and the dining experience. And I've just got up there an example of some of the markets and some of the types of cuts they take. So we're really about utilising the carcass. But what we know we have to do is do that better and find more price premiums throughout that journey. And that's why we're here today. So those opportunities. We know we've got a great product. Our consumer drivers already tell us that, you know, we're seen as we match the freshness that they're looking for. It's safe to eat. We've got a nutritious product and people enjoy it. It's a hearty meal. And we know there are some challenges and some consumer trends that we've got to monitor and be aware of. So obviously sustainability and environment. And we are working on this. We've got a project called Carbon Neutral by 2030. Our MD announced that about 12 months ago. So we have a target to aim for. We've got a lot of data and information on our Good Meat website, so I encourage you to go and have a look and understand our story a bit better. And we do have a framework where we are looking at those sustainability drivers, and we've got a range of projects, and Sean Starling, who I introduced before, will be able to talk about that more if you want to understand that journey. But today's all about tomorrow's food and the future food. So we want to have a conversation with you about where we're going tomorrow. Sam's going to take you through that in a little bit more detail, but it's all about what are the new opportunities. We know what we do today and we do it well. We can do it better, but we want to look for new opportunities now. We've got 3 themes that we've done some research on. We've done a lot of research, but we've got to bring it to the market. We need to hear from the people here today, if they're right, how they fit in with Asia, and then find partnerships and opportunities for the future. So look, in summary, MLA, we've done lots of research. We've got lots of information, lots of data and lots of research. We've got a great product already out there in global markets. It's well respected and it's trusted, but we want to be here today to talk to you about the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I'll just get my slides up. I'll reiterate the previous speaker's slides, comments. It's really great to be here today, see so much energy in the room. This week in Singapore has been wonderful just to see the level of collaboration and willingness to open up their doors, their research, their science, and actually match that to business to understand and solve some really, really complex problems. So my role here today is to help share what we've been looking at in this concept of tomorrow's food. So my role is there, MLA's Design Thinker in Residence. And what that role really does is help you get closer to the customer. And anyone who's actually worked in design thinking would say, yep, there's a lot of post-it notes in doing that, but the post-it note is such a small part of it. It's really the mindset to be able to actually understand and stop thinking about certain things and allow you to actually, what if, we believe. So it's a lot of that exploration. Michael spoke today about today's business. And when we talk about our customer, we know a lot about our customer in today's business, and we're going to continue to invest in doing that. And we've got some very robust methods of doing that in various markets. But it's really that dynamic, changing customer that we're interested in. How do we get to those? How do we start to think about those in a different way? How do we actually start to experiment with them? And that's this whole open innovation method. We can't do it alone. We need to actually work with others to help before we get to a solution. So we've been looking at tomorrow's business, and we've been using these McKinsey's 3 Horizons framework. It's quite a simple framework I'm sure many of you have used. And Michael really described about Horizon 1. It's about today's business and how we can actually execute on that with precision and continue to grow within that. We're looking at Horizon 2 and Horizon 3. And that's the key of where we see some of these huge growth opportunities we're looking at. And when we talk about growth, we talk about potentially a 5 times multiplier over our current channels. So we're seeing significant opportunities within that. But I think the thing with the Horizons model is you need to understand the consumer insight. We need to understand that insight first. It's too easy to get caught up in the detail. And I've come from a tech world where we spend a lot of time on actually rushing straight to the solution and not understanding the problem. So when I talk about design thinking, there's lots of definitions out there, and I like the one by Einstein. He didn't call it design thinking, but he said, if I had an hour to save the world, I'd spend 59 minutes defining the problem and 1 minute finding solutions. And in business, we're not good at doing this. We like to get to solution, but you need to understand the why behind it. So I think where we're on this journey, we're probably 30 minutes into that scale. That doesn't say we're not doing research, we're not doing great science, and not engaging with scientists. That's all happening, but the reason we're doing that is to understand. And today is really about helping us understand with you, are these the problems you're actually wanting to work on? So how do we go about doing it? Where do we start? A key part is we looked at some really, really big trends. Trends you're probably looking at as well, I'm hoping. So we looked at these 10 key food trends in health and nutrition, and that gave us at least a starting point of where to look for. We then looked at inside our own market data, and we've got a lot of that, and we started to say, well, where did this start to land within our actual, with some of these opportunities? But I suppose the key part then is, how can Australia have some comparative advantage to that? Yes, it could be a red meat opportunity, but what does Australia bring to that table? How does that actually offer some unfair advantage that we can actually take ownership on and take to the market? So this is a really good, robust understanding. We spent a fair bit of time actually looking at this. And this was helped through a lot of government programs and grants and some of our research in doing this. And what we did then, we actually landed on these 5 key themes. And this is what we shared with you before the workshop, and what we're going to be working on throughout the day. And there are essentially 3 overlapping themes, and they landed on snacking. And snacking, both how people want to snack both on the go, but in new social occasions. Where might they go to? We looked at that whole notion of the ageing population, but within that, the whole notion of multi-generational households. So people living together, we need to actually feed people as one. And then the notion around people want personalised food, but they also want to then have their food connected to some sort of their own personalisation, their own daily routines. How do we actually start to connect those together? Now, they were buckets of research, I suppose, we started to look at. They're not independent. They all overlap. So you could have a snacking concept in ageing, and that makes sense. But we wanted to look at them this way. Underpinning them was health and wellness. That's a non-negotiable. People want to actually maintain a healthy diet. They want to actually prolong. They want to be active agers. And the other one was food security is, again, non-negotiable in all of those themes. How do people actually start to understand where their food come from, where's traceability and provenance? And some of the themes you've heard from speakers today really reinforces this. So we've got these themes up there, and the way we wrote them was, what was the context? What was he thought the problem was? Where did we see an opportunity for red meat? And we gave some of our research up there. And that's available for everyone to read, and there's some really, really rigorous data behind that of our thinking. But reports are just a report. Right? So it's nice, you can have reports, we can have reports. How do we activate on that? How do we actually do something? So this is where I suppose design thinking really starts to come into this next layer. We took those themes and we overlaid this simple design thinking framework. So we asked, well, what's the desirability? Who wants something like this? Who in the market actually would like it? Technically feasible, how would you make it? What's the sort of technologies that are both existing today and emerging? And then what's the viability of it? What's the business model that underpins that? And we started to put those 2 worlds together, and we came up with a whole heap of experiments with industry partners. We've probably spent about $15 million on this so far, on about 60 different projects that we're working on. Now, and you'll see a lot of these throughout the day. We've kept them very much as concept sketches because we didn't want to get caught up in the detail. What we want to do is actually understand, is there a problem we're solving? And we needed enough science, enough technology to help us get there. And what's been really useful for this is, we've learnt a lot about these themes. We've learnt a lot about the problems that we're trying to solve. But we need to go one step further, and that's where we are today. So if you look at a traditional design thinking framework, we've opened up the problem by looking at these macro trends, and we've closed it by looking at some reports. We then opened it up again, and we've created these concepts or these ideas, these what-if experiments. And we want to bring that kind of down together and open it up with you today. We want your expertise to overlay on these concepts. And then ultimately, we want to get down to some partnerships with you. We want to bring these ideas to life where we know we have robust understandings, we actually have strong value propositions, we know we're solving a customer's problems that we can actually take to market, and collectively we can actually deliver value for that customer. And that's hopefully we're going to be doing that later in the year. But we're pretty much in the middle at the moment, and the goal today is not to solve anything, but it's essentially to help us understand where these problems are before we go too far, and we can share everything we've done with you. So on that, I'm going to hand over to Adam to talk about the process we're going to go through.
And thanks to all our speakers so far. I think someone will help me with that, will they? Well, actually, we'll go back to that, but if I could just have my process slide. Which will appear. Look at me, don't look at that. It'll magically appear in a moment, I'm sure. So what we're going to do, and this is just going to require a little bit of cooperation amongst us all. As you came in, you each selected 2 colours that you wanted to speak and investigate. So what's going to happen, the orange/red board that's over there is going to come down to the front. At the back behind you is the black. So I should read what actually the orange is. Oh, there we go. So green over to my right, aging, black, personalised nutrition up the back, and the orange-red snacking will be down the front. Next slide, please. The process. No? There we go, the process. So I'm going to ask you to separate into your first colour of choice. And there's around 90, 100 people in the room, so that's going to mean quite a few people at each carousel. But that's okay, we've got this planned about. We're going to move some of the chairs out of the way to give you plenty of room. So the process, once you get to your station, and we'd like you to move fairly swiftly so we can get on with it, there's a lead from MLA who's going to take you through the context of that particular station, and that's going to go on for about 10 minutes. Then you'll be armed with post-its as usual and markers, and we will ask you some questions. This is the part where we're asking for your help to help MLA perfect their insights and look for different opportunities. So then you'll have another discussion about those once you get the ideas up, and that'll go on for about another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll move you on to the next station. So that's going to take us just over 50 minutes thereabouts. And then we'll move into lunch and general networking, and that also will give you the opportunity to go to the third station that you haven't been able to participate in. Any of you that didn't receive the pre-workshop email, you'll be getting more links after the workshop. There are mountains of information that you can take advantage of, and all the material you see on the stations will also be forwarded to you as part of that. So great opportunity to collect information. Now, with your particular survey or this document, hold on to that, because we need you to fill that out, because that will go into the lucky draw to win the voucher for the meat tray a little bit later. So if you don't fill that in, you don't get a chance to get the meat tray. Okay, so in good sort of calm and safety manner, if you could just look at what colour you've got first. Those of who'd like to come down to red, which is snacking, please make your way down here.